Good morning. Good evening. Well, my name is Parmenidou. I'm a clinical psychologist, systemically oriented, and I'm coming from Sheffield University. So this is the end product of experiencing the situation, the professional status, how things are in Greece, how I experienced the situation when I came back from England. And I tried the last few years to gather information about the situation here in Greece, while at the same time attending and watching what is going on in Europe regarding the regulation of the profession of psychologists and psychotherapists, okay? And at the end of the day, I decided to put all these things, all these years together in order to understand first myself how things are going on, how can I be of help, real help, and not theoretically speaking, because Greece at the moment, as everybody knows, goes through enormous crisis in many levels, okay? Not only economic, but also psychological, emotional, etc., etc. So I searched through the literature and I discovered what I really needed to focus on, the cultural trauma Greeks are going through. Okay, so the whole story is going to revolve around this context. Okay, are you psychologists here, psychiatrists? Mostly, all right. You are management, so we need you. At the end of the day, I think you are going to be very helpful in the whole process.
We'll be more unhelpful.
So the title is Reconstructing and Securing Continuation of Meaning Experience in Discontinuous Social Environments, okay? So why this title came up? Reconstructing. My clinical work with families, individuals here in Greece showed me that there is a discontinuity in people's lives, okay? There are many things happened in very short period of time, okay? Many changes occurred in the Greek society in very few years' time, all right? So people missed the chance of recapitulating meaning in their lives, okay? And this discontinuous experiential processing occurs not only in families producing symptomatology, okay, but in the wider societal level as well. So we have a very chaotic at the moment processes occurring, and we experience these. At the end of the day, we have enormous depletion and non-effective productivity. Okay. Is it all right? Can you understand what I'm just trying? So the bridges of action and transaction is we are trying to bridge ourselves, to make bridges, okay, to connect ourselves and understand where are we going, okay, as persons, as professionals, as societies, etc., etc. So we're going through this transition very traumatically, okay? So since I have been trained also in systemic way of thinking, okay, I'm part and parcel of this process, all right? I'm a professional, I'm a human being, and I need to consider myself that this is a product of this participant observation in the whole process. So the idea is that mental health is in development, okay? Mental health of ourselves, our mental health, the mental health of the population we live in, all right? And I went through the internet, and I went into the World Health Organization page to see what is going on. How do they consider mental health? How do they conceptualize mental health? And I found this table. They are just trying to create proposals on mental health, poverty and development, action in different countries, mental health, human rights and legislation, and mental health policy planning and service development. So I said, where are we standing at the moment? Where are we in Greece, okay? So where exactly are we? And you know how our universities are functioning. We're not so research oriented, all right? So I came back from Britain and I didn't like the situation. So I am just trying to do the whole thing at the moment myself. So one of the hallmarks of a civilized society is the way in which it caters for those who require help as a result of mental health problems, okay? So mental health legislation has generally developed internationally from that which protected society from people with mental disorder to additionally protecting the health and safety of people with mental disorder. This presentation, therefore, aims at focusing on the one hand on the rights of an individual in a free society, okay, and on the other hand the need to protect the individual and society at large from the adverse effects of mental disorders. Illiteracy is quite high in Greece at the moment. Illiteracy, you know, not digital, factual illiteracy, okay, is coming high, you know, because our educational system is going down, okay? So people are just, you know, spreading their anxiety without actually doing many things, but they're diffusing their anxiety, and we have to put all these emotional chaos into some kind of order, okay? And of course, we as professionals need to be effective, apart from theorizing, okay? Because congresses are very good, but we have to be actually effective in what we are doing. So we have high rates of poverty, you can see that, okay, and also unemployment rates, and all the relevant consequences beyond that. So financial strain is also quite high for high-risk groups of people, and the legislatory status is also not well established here in Greece. So I had to search the literature and find out what is going actually on in England, because I like the way things work there. So I tried to inspire myself and see what we can actually do here as well. So let's see what goes on concerning legislatory status, etc., etc. So, many countries have looked to the England and Wales Mental Health Act for guidance when formulating their own mental health legislation, okay? It would seem appropriate to consider mental health law within an international context, but unfortunately we are far from implementing an international comparison with mental health legislation. According to the literature, it's very difficult to implement international comparisons to see where each country stands for. But apart from that, many countries can be a source of inspiration, new ideas, since we can be guided by those who have already attempted to implement mental health policy by comparing their already established mental health systems, optimizing the state of mental health care locally tailored. Okay, we have to see what the needs of this particular society is, apart from what is going on in US or the rest of the world, okay? So for example, the objective of an international comparative study was to describe and compare the mental health policies in 7 countries of Eastern Europe, okay, that set common political history: Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Hungary, Moldova, Poland, Romania, and Slovakia. The health policy questionnaire was developed for that particular countries, and the country-specific information was gathered, etc. So why I'm going through all these, I can actually tell you, because now at the moment we are in the process of organizing the whole story, okay? So we have to think and see what is going on to the rest of the countries in Europe, okay? We have to coordinate our efforts so we can become more effective, okay? Otherwise people won't receive the help they need.
Do you mean that actually, when you say we, who are
We here in Greece, I mean...
So do you mean that the government actually...
Yes, we have to think of how can we sustain all this emotional, mess we are going through, all right? We have to be effective. We can't just talk about ideas without implementing this. And we have to also see what is going on in the rest of Europe, all right? Okay? So I went through the literature and find out what some other people did anyway, and I found out that this person actually did this in these particular countries, and I just put them down what he actually did, and this is the information I received, how he did it anyway. So in fact, he found out that the social economic transition in the 90s initiated the process of new mental health policy formulation, adoption of mental health legislation, stressing human rights of patients, and a strong call for a pragmatic balance of community and hospital services. Not maybe for Canada or for US or for Britain or, developed countries, these are, have been implemented for years ago, okay, decades ago. But this is not self-evident in Greece, all right? We are in the process of actually doing more effective work, all right? And there are some people that really work here, okay? The training standards are becoming much better, okay? And people are actually, we have more professionals now at the moment than we had 10 years ago, 15 years ago, all right? So these professionals need actually to establish themselves in the community or in hospital services. So I'll go through some of those slides in a hurry because actually this is a whole idea of proposing some changes here in Greece and not already happened, okay? So let's see what is going on. Social and cultural change. So we have very, very rapid social and cultural changes here in Greece, okay? We have high, how do you say, nationalism, okay? You say, yes? And polarizing attitudes throughout the society. Okay, so what can we do as psychologists? We have to act. So across the globe, you know that the existence of formal standards for credentialing of psychologists and psychotherapists is tied to a nation's economic wealth or economic stability, the least, and the vibrancy of the academic discipline of applied psychology. Applied psychology can be very, very effective, okay? And we have to see what we can do in order to be of real help to people and proceed. So most of the early studies of social factors and disease onset were concerned with the effects of social and cultural change, okay? These studies included studies of industrialization, urbanization, migration, and social, occupational, geographical mobility. Unless we produce serious, work in our universities, we can't be of serious, effective interventions in the community, all right? So we have to consider that we have to become conscious of the cultural trauma we are going through, okay? We can't deny what we are going through. We are going through a cultural trauma. And we know that there is a compelling evidence from a broad range of indicators that demonstrate that indigenous people of the world experience a state of living and health that is well below acceptable standards. We know that these austerity measures that are taken for Greece at the moment have put an awful lot of stress, emotional, physical, and all these huge burden on people's standard of living, okay? So, in most cases, the cause is attributed to the impact of globalization and its going effects. And although such a view is clearly justified, the complexity and prevalence of psychological and well-being problems suffered today definitely require deeper analysis. It's not something that we can reach conclusions superficially. We need to do serious, deeper analysis of the problems and propose solutions. Globalization brought about deep suffering to people due to the subsequent traumatic disruption of their culture and the resultant breakdowns of systems of existential meaning and value of human beings, okay? And this is more than obvious the last at least 7 or 8 years. The dynamics of cultural trauma and revival should inform the professional areas of practice with these people while considering the validity of diagnosis of cultural trauma syndrome, which Salzman proposed to describe as a common cluster of symptoms suffered by people who experience traumatic cultural disruption. Professionals need to assist individuals and communities in the identification of standards and values within the cultural worldview that promote adaptive action in current realities. Family therapy, for example, it started, the first generation of family therapists in Greece. It's only, 5-10 years that we have, serious training in family therapy in Greece, okay? So we have to be realistic, all right? So indigenous people, if we consider that Greeks are indigenous, throughout the world, having suffered trauma and incalculable sense of inferiority, supported by oppressive and orthodox political systems, are seeking their traditional cultural worldviews, resurrecting the ontological prescriptions and standards embedded in those worldviews. Maladaptive anxiety reduction strategies may have momentary desired effects. They serve to produce additional sources of grief, pain, and tragedy. Efforts toward cultural recovery and the reconstitution of a world of meaning in which to act represent an important step toward the restoration of the essential psychological prerequisites for adaptive action. Okay? Unless we go through this, people will experience disruptions, loss of continuity in their own narrative of lives. Okay? These slides revolve around this area of cultural trauma, and let's go and see what is going on concerning social support systems. Social support system. Social support refers to a fairly broad category of events and includes practical assistance, okay, financial help, the provision of information and advice, and psychological support. The mechanisms by which it enhances or protects health are not known. One hypothesis concerning this mechanism has emerged in the context of studies of the negative health impact of stressful life circumstances. This research suggests that social support acts as a buff against adverse events that would otherwise have health damaging effects. We know that if somebody changed jobs, place of residence, or life circumstances, the level of, the health status of somebody is going to decline anyway. And we also know this by certain studies before. Researchers and practitioners collaborate in a project across 5 European countries aimed to define the characteristics of a good community care for people with severe mental illness and to explore the values of stakeholders in this debate, that is, clients, families, professionals, policymakers, and other citizens. In a concept mapping procedure, all stakeholders gave highest priority to a trusting and stimulating relationship between clients and professionals. And secondly, good care was seen as effective treatment tailored to the individual needs, okay? We know that different methodologies approach different pathology and symptomatology, but this is a rather more humane way of proposing and seeing how we can intervene. Now, let's say social support is one aspect we have to think. And we also have to think that certain life events are considered as vulnerability factors to high-risk individuals, okay? And this is there is quite a lot of evidence from certain researchers. Let's see now. For example, women are considered high-risk individuals, okay? And we can see that these vulnerability factors that they have been considered as very important for their health is the absence of a close confining relationship with a spouse or other person, loss of mother before the age of 11, lack of employment outside the home, having 3 or more children under the age of 15 living at home, you know. And so these are indicators, okay? All right? These are the facts. And of course, we have to aim at culturally appropriate therapy, okay? Because methodologically speaking, we have many proposals. But are we effective at the end of the day, or we are not? We don't know, because there is enough research done. So we don't know exactly how effective our interventions are. And the first psychotherapists in Greece were psychoanalytically oriented, okay? And then systemic training came as more fashionable in our academic environments. So the preoccupation in clinical circles with scientific and medical meaning systems have sent most therapies scattering after the real causes, the real explanation, the real cures, as though they were addressing events in the physical world like earthquakes. These meaning systems have required them to be rigorously scientific, neutral, and professional. That's what I tried to do at the beginning of my career, but then I realized that I wasn't so effective, okay? So after having gone through this circular way of causality, you know, systemic way of thinking, I became more authentic without actually being, trying to protect myself as well of enormous loads of depletion. So it was as though people's therapeutic problems were entities in themselves, and the humanity and meaning from which those problems spring were discarded, okay? This is not to suggest that therapists and researchers are necessarily inhumane or cold, but that the meaning system that underpins the therapeutic pursuit was understood best as physical, scientific, biological, and medical. So most of the old generation therapists were more detached, okay? Then they were linearly. They were thinking of looking at facts more linearly. Okay, the Newtonian paradigm was more prevalent, all right? But now we are just trying to become, to approach the whole things differently the last at least 20 or 10 years here in Greece. Now, the search for objective diagnosis, causes, explanations, and cures, okay, separated the therapeutic context, out of which they developed. No wonder our psychiatric and psychological knowledge became restricted and tentative, okay? And it has been the analysis of construction, story, and weaving that have removed the restrictions of physical scientific investigation for therapeutic discussion and relocated within this area of meaning, okay, the last few years. And this was a great relief for many professionals and colleagues of mine, in fact. The constructivist approach, okay, to therapy required the search and pursuit of meaning, okay? So people started understanding pathology in different terms, okay? And it required therapists to become more acutely aware of the meaning construction they created in the context of therapy, okay? So this awareness inevitably led to the cultural determinants of people's meaning webs. So it's different to see a girl, an anorectic girl, okay, and apply a certain therapeutic approach without actually considering why this particular person develops at this particular time this particular symptom, okay? So contextually, being contextually oriented changes the culture of intervention, all right? Okay? And of course, family therapy and all the literature on family therapy helped us an awful lot, because everything occurs within a culture, okay? So you can't generalize and say, because I approached this person at that particular culture at that time, and I produced results, that the same results are going to take place in another culture, okay? We have to be very, very cautious on that. That's why cross-cultural studies can help in this case, okay? All right? We have to think and consider that therapy is a linguistic activity, okay, in which a conversation about a problem generates the development of new meanings, okay? So treatment is a process of dissolving a problem system rather than finding solutions to problems, okay? Psychotherapy is a dialogue since Freud, since time immemorial, okay? So that's how it started anyway. And if we go further back, all right, we'll go to the Greeks. And the dialogue produces more and more ways out of a problematic situation, all right? So the teaching of therapy in practically all academic institutions has been monocultural, though. Okay, concepts deeply embedded in modern North American and Western European societies have been presented as the international and intercultural ways of therapy, okay? And we have been trained in this way of thinking, but when we started applying this in our culture, we find difficulties, okay? I have colleagues actually who are trying to intervene paradoxically, all right? And at the end of the day, they produce nothing because they can't actually be empathically related to the persons they are trying to make contact with, all right? So they have, from one part of their brain, what they should do, okay? And reality needs a different approach, okay? So this incongruence needs to become, how do you say? To bridge these incongruences, okay? To make sense of these. So we can't just apply things without actually considering what we are doing, okay? We need to think about cultural differences and how we can become problem-focused, but taking the particular culture in mind, okay? I think the same thing happens in organizations as well. I mean, the people who take part and participate in organizations are different, okay? So it's a different attitude somebody from Greece has if he or she participates in organization, and different if he comes from Northern Europe, for example, okay, or Eastern Europe. I know because I participate in such an organization, and through the workshops we can find these differences that we are trying actually to bridge them, okay, to eliminate the differences so we can make, how do you say, a common basis of communication, how we want to proceed, what do we want to do. So we have to arrange our differences and find a common way of communication. No matter what, therapy can be a vehicle for addressing some of the injustices that occur in our society. In choosing not to address these issues in therapy, therapies of different orientations may be inadvertently replicating and even furthering existing injustices, okay? A just therapy is one that takes into account the gender, cultural, social, and economic context of the person seeking help. And it is our view that therapists have a responsibility to find appropriate ways of addressing these issues and developing approaches that are centrally concerned with the often forgotten issues of fairness and equity. Therapists have a very, very valuable role to play in our societies nowadays, okay? So the more ourselves become aware of more conscious of our boundaries, our resources, our ways of communicating and how we can intervene, the more effective we can actually become. Because therapy reflects themes of liberation that lead to self-deterring outcomes of resolution and hope. The day we become aware of how we can actually become effective, okay, it is a liberating day, okay? Because you can just try to intervene with a certain way, and at the end of the day you decide to be more real towards yourself, and then the intervention becomes more effective. You see, self-disclosure it's called, okay? It happens. So this is my way of presenting my presentation, but it is quite time-consuming, and I'm going to skip all these. Evolving multidisciplinary approaches to primary care, for example, through policy reform may be of important utility. I mean, we need to change our mentalities here in Greece and become more multidisciplinary oriented, okay? So when you don't know a field of approaching, you need to ask for help, okay? You can't have the omnipotent attitude that you know everything, all right? Which is our way of considering ourselves. I know the Greek attitude, so, and culture. So we have to become more multidisciplinary oriented here in Greece, okay? So if we don't know something, we can ask for help. Somebody can join the group and find a solution to something we don't know how to do it, all right? So apart from this, a global sharing of experiences among ourselves and researchers and educators and policymakers is going to be of immense importance and help. Integrating primary care, mental health and public health would enhance at the end of the day population's health and mitigate responses to these global complex emergencies, all right? So we can eliminate the burden of disease at the end of the day, okay? So how can we actually succeed in doing this, all right? So how can you transform ideas and visions and good, how do you say, processes, intentions to practice? And I searched the literature and find out that from evidence-based, we are becoming steadily and gradually values-based oriented. Okay? What is this? Values-based practice, VBP, is a new approach to balanced decision-making. Okay? Values-based. Now, this is the most important aspect of my work, I think. Building on work in analytic philosophy as applied to concepts of disorder, Fulford actually is a British guy, okay? And combining analytic with empirical social science research, values-based practice represents a strong philosophy into practice, okay? Philosophy into practice. Development within the wider field of the philosophy of psychiatry, all right? There have also been important developments internationally and particularly by these particular authors through the World Psychiatric Association's institutional program on psychiatry for the person, okay? Values-based practice is only one of a number of new resources from different disciplines that are being developed to support more effective ways of working with values in medicine. In addition to ethics and law, there have been significant recent developments both in health economics, okay, because we know how we are trying to manage mental health lately, all right? Things are taking different shape, and decision analysis. So the distinctive contribution of values-based practice is, rather than seeking to prescribe right values, how you should do it, okay? I know, because I'm the expert, okay? It starts from respect for differences of values and relies on good process for balanced decision making when values conflict. Okay, this approach takes more in mind the other part of the equation. Okay, we have been trained to intervene. Okay, but we have to consider that there are other people at the other side who have their own values, their own way of approaching life, their own way of thinking, so we have to be more open of themselves, apart from, boosting our own self-esteem and way of intervening. So we have to think of process work value-oriented, okay? This is what values-based practice is. All right? Values-based practice can thus be thought of as the counterpart for values of evidence-based practice, where evidence-based practice offers a process for working more effectively with complex and conflicting evidence, all right? Okay? Values-based practice offers a different, although complementary process for working more effectively with complex and conflicting values, all right? Can you follow me? We become more actively participating in the process. So the more we change, we can become agents of change. So the more we become aware of ourselves, the more effective we can become in the field of our work, all right? And less stressful. Because we are more open. Not so digitally programmed of how to function, academically speaking, is one thing, okay? We can do academic work, but field work is different, okay? So there are 10 key elements of the good process of values-based practice, as summarized as 10 pointers in the arrow that follows. And we can just see what certain authors propose as guidance, not as solutions and panaceas. 10 key elements of values-based practice. So the 10 key elements of values-based practice consider of practice skills, okay? The first arrow concerns practice skills. What is practice skills? We are aware of the values present in a given situation, okay? Careful attention to language is one way of raising awareness of values. So we participate in the field, and we have to become more aware of what are the values of at stake, okay? So reasoning, we have to think and explore the values present when making decisions at that particular case, and not what somebody else did, okay? We have to think of this particular case and the values present when making decisions now and then, all right? Knowledge, we have the academic knowledge at the back of our minds, but we have to think how we can apply this knowledge at this particular specific situation, tailoring our interventions, okay? And of course, communication, combined with the previous three skills, this is central to the resolution of conflicts and decision-making process. We need to communicate clearly and ask for help in case we don't know how to go further, all right? So supervision in this case may be self-evident for you, all right, who have been, trained in this way before at your country. Where are you coming from?
Los Angeles, but I can relate to what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah,
thanks God for that. All right. And then comes the models of service, all right? It must be user-centered, okay? The first source for formation on values in any situation is the perspective of the service user concerned. The second, concerns multidisciplinary approach. I told that before. Conflicts of values can be resolved in values-based practice, not by applying pre-prescribed rules, okay? And then we have the values-based practice and evidence-based practice. Think of these three, the 2 feet principle. All decisions are based on facts and values. The squeaky wheel principle, we only know. Well, I can't actually translate this in Greek, okay? So I'm just trying, I take the ideas, I'm just processing this information. So I'm just trying to present this, and then at the same time I'm processing this information to see how effective we can become by adapting these ideas in our society, okay? So, and at the end of the day, is partnership. In values-based practice, decisions are taken by service users and the providers of care working in partnership, okay? These are ideas that are taken by other people, okay? They have actually applied this in Britain, okay? Because the literature is from Britain. You don't know this?
Not a values practice.
Not values-based practice.
Evidence-based, yeah.
But it was, yes, but it was actually taken from Britain.
Theoretically, maybe.
Yes, yes. So, values-based practice, ethics and law. There is a large and well-established literature on the ethical and legal issues raised by the use of involuntary treatment, for example. Values-based practice is complementary to ethics and law in that each skills-based approach to balanced decision-making operates within a framework of shared values that is defined by ethics and embodied in law. Now comes the practical aspect. And we are far away from implementing this in Greece, believe me, as far as I'm concerned at least, and all these years of practicing here. So this approach is consistent with recent work in jurisprudence in the closely related area of human rights legislation. That's a very, very delicate aspect. One of the UK's most senior lawyers, Lord Wolfe, has written about human rights legislation as providing an effective framework of values within which balanced decisions have to be taken on individual cases. It is this framework of values approach that they have adapted in developing the training materials for the new Mental Health Act. Okay? So, the key to the approach in this case was a set of guiding principles that were developed literally to guide the way the act is used in practice. Okay? Now, implementation comes in focus. The guiding principles, as listed in Table 1, are set out in the Code of Practice as required by the Act itself, okay? The way in which the guiding principles fit together with the Code of Practice and the Act itself can be summarized thus. List of guiding principles in the Code of Practice. Okay, we need to have some kind of guidance. Where are we going, okay? So the whole idea revolves around these issues now. The list of guiding principles in the Code of Practice. Okay, am I professional? Okay, how am I going to act? All right. Where is it? Oh, yes. So, how am I going to act? I have to think of certain things. Apart from methodological issues, I have to respect people taking action under the Act must recognize and respect the diverse needs, values, and circumstances of each patient, okay? Including race, religion, culture, gender, age, sexual orientation, and any disability. They must consider the patient's views, wishes, and feelings, and there must be no unlawful discrimination. This is values-based practice. In comparison with evidence-based practice, you can see the difference, all right? So we become more patient-oriented and field-oriented, okay? So the next step is participation. Patients must be given the opportunity to be involved as far as is practicable in the circumstances. So we have to consider of their own opinions and ideas of the process, okay? We are not just imposing our ideas on them, okay? In planning, developing, and reviewing their own treatment. They are becoming active participants of the process. So, the involvement of carers, family members, and other people who have an interest in the patient's welfare should be encouraged, okay? So you don't just take the child out of the context, okay? You take the child with the context, within the context, and you put the whole, immediate environment in the therapeutic process. So they are participating in the outcome. You are not considering yourself, a godlike approach. You have to think of them and their needs and their welfare, unless there is, of course, particular reason to act on the contrary, okay? So apart from respect and participation, we have to think that people taking decisions under the Act must seek to use the resources available to them and to the patients in the most effective, efficient, and equitable way to meet the needs of patients and achieve the purpose for which the decision was taken, okay? So we have to consider ourselves effective, efficient, within the context, all right? But do we have the means to be as we want to be? Do we have the resources? Okay? This is, do we have the resources to be? Okay? Because, a professional can intervene, but needs the help of other institutions or policies. Okay? If somebody needs funding for a certain thing, I mean, if you don't have the help of the government in certain issues, you can't just count on your own initiatives. So the law in this case, the new Mental Health Act, tell us what to do. Okay, you have a context of how to act. The code of practice tell us how to do it. All right, we have certain things of how to act. We are not just acting because we consider that this methodology is good or not. Okay, but it gives us a better way of how to do it, a guiding, let's say, track. And the guiding principles provide a framework of shared values as the basis for applying the law guided by the code of practice in a balanced way to individual cases. So this is a more organized way of intervening, okay? Instead of acting, let's say, in a rather chaotic contextual professional environment. So the framework of shared values represented by the guiding principles is shown in the following figure. And as we can see, this figure indicates the principles that have all equal weight. That is a round table of values. But these particular values can be sometimes in conflict, all right? And we have to think that maybe there will be conflicts in the process, but if we have these guiding principles in the back of our hands, okay, we can become more effective in what we are going to do, okay? So the guiding principles and values-based practice might look as follows, okay? We have the purpose principle, why you are doing what we are doing, the least restrictive alternative principle. We can't actually impose our value system in the field, okay? We have to consider the value system, it's over there, all right? Okay, if someone is asking for help but has certain, how do you say, resistances in changing, I'm not going to impose my own truth, okay? I have to consider that this is what needs to be done according to him. So this is the respect principle, okay? That's why it is human rights focused, okay? Oriented, this approach, the values-based approach. The participation principle. We participate, we are expanding our context, and we become more effective in considering the help of other professionals, and not only clinicians working on their own, okay? Maybe this sounds a little bit strange for you, because you have, actually applied clinical work in different countries, but it's not self-evident here, all right? they are going to take form and shape through the years, gradually, by our own initiatives, trying to apply what was effective and helpful in other cultures, okay? So the resources principles, as I said, we have to collaborate with government. The government should be more helpful instead of being negligent and ignorant of the needs of the professionals, etc., etc. And that's how things gradually are going to change here in Greece if we become more effective and humane, considering the problems our society at the moment is facing. Okay, so the conclusions of the whole story, which wasn't so magnificently presented by me, is that rights-based disability approaches have not yet been widely applied in the area of mental health, though they have been used to good avail in changing social and physical environments to be supportive of people with mental or physical disabilities and problems, okay? Even when legal protections exist, they often do not translate into appropriate social rights and entitlements, particularly when violations are entrenched in stigmatized views of the mentally ill. Okay, we have the intentions, but the end product is not there, okay? So we have to act considering certain issues in mind, okay? Well-designed and energetic social advocacy programs designed to change societal structures and institutional practices target human rights violations and eliminate discriminating policies and practices that deny people with mental illnesses access to the legal and social entitlements that other citizens take for granted, having the potential to bring justice to where justice has been denied, improving the conditions of entire group of citizens. Okay? Hospitals, mental health hospitals now are just closing. Okay, so we have to think how are we going to intervene and how we're going to support all these people who are going to just come out of these institutions. Now, this multidimensional panoramic view is very, how do you say, φιλόδοξο? Ambitious project. But, okay, if we manage to at least implement half of this in some years' time, I think we will make a great progress, okay? So we need to take in account that we live definitely in rapidly transitional societies, but if we want the medical and other health-related professions to make their greatest potential contribution to the welfare of the populations they are privileged to serve, okay, we have to think of how to apply mental health policy, okay, and we have to become more happiness-oriented, okay, how we can create more functional and happy people instead of just intervening to eliminate the symptomatology or the stigma of the persons who have the problems. So Thomas Kuhn, going back in 1970s, pointed out that the way in which science operates is often very far from a rigorous objective assessment of evidence. All right, what is science? Science, episteme, okay, science in Greece, okay, in Greek we say episteme, okay, episteme, epistame. I'm looking from the top, from above. So you're observing what is going on there. But if you consider yourself that you're part of a system, you're actually trying to change something that is also part of yourself. Okay? You can't separate the observed from the observant, all right? So Kuhn argues that scientific ideas are organized into definable paradigms of ideas that create a state of what he described as normal science. When scientific change does occur, it is often the result of a crisis in the existing theory that brings about a radical change of ideas, what Kuhn called a paradigm shift. Okay? So from the Newtonian linear paradigm, we are going through the systemic circular paradigm, which is far more difficult, okay? Because the more we become conscious of ourselves, the more actually we progress as people, as individuals, and as active members in a society, no matter what our profession or choice of field we are, okay? That's how the whole idea, at least, I'm just trying to put all these bits and pieces in order to understand how we can actually try to implement these and become more effective in what we are doing, apart from theorizing, okay? We have to become more practical and help people go through this critical transitional period or historical period here in Greece with eliminating casualties, okay? So this is the references, and I have also these written down in a much better way than I have actually tried to tell all this in my second language. And you can actually have one of the manuscripts I have created and I have brought here today. So thanks for coming, joining, and had the patience to listen to me.